Good morning, everyone. This is Sean Fleming. We're just waiting for a quorum to show up. So welcome. This is the Developmental Disabilities FY21 Planning Committee. While we're waiting for a quorum, I'll just go over the protocols for holding teleconference meetings. Council and committee members are going to be pulled into the panelists block, and everyone else will be listed as an attendee. Panelists, you're asked to turn on your cameras. You will only be counted in a quorum once your camera is activated and your face is visible. Please have your name correctly indicated in your screen. Leave your microphones on mute unless you're ready to speak, and please raise your hand as customarily is done during all council meetings until the chairperson recognizes you. And then once recognized, please turn on your mic. When you're finished, you're asked to turn your mic back off. Guests can comment, or the public may comment a few different ways. You can speak during the meeting. You can electronically raise your hand. We will be tracking all these things. You can raise your hand, and at the proper time, the chairperson will be queued to call on you. And when he calls on you, there will be a slight delay where you will be pulled into the other room, basically at the table. And so just wait for a little while your system catches up. And then you can turn on your microphone and your video feed and speak directly to the panel, to the committee. Upon finishing, you'll be asked to turn your mic off, but you'll be moved back into the attendee list. Good morning, Bambi. You may also post comments. If you look on the bottom of your screen, there's a chat button, or does it have the Q&A? It's kind of, I have Q&A. I don't even see the chat button on mine. So, oh, here it is. Yeah, you're asked to put you can comment in the chat button. There is also a Q&A. So if you have a technical question or just want to know the logistics of what's happening, and staff will monitor the Q&A, we'll answer those. But if you want to pose a question or say something to the panel, you're asked to put that in the chat if you don't want to speak out loud. If you're watching on YouTube during the meeting, you can also comment underneath the YouTube, and we'll have staff monitoring that as well. And we'll be pulling those things into the chat feature for our panelists to see, for our committee to see. So if you have any questions, let me know. Again, we're just waiting for a quorum to arrive, and then we'll get started. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest in the council. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning.
Hi, this is Bambi. Where is the raise hand option? I don't see that on my screen.
Morning, Bambi.
Good morning.
It's if you open up your participant list, it is.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so I need to move that.
I don't see it on my end either. I have the participant list open.
It's down towards the bottom, Stephen. Where it says invite, mute me, or raise hand. So like I just raised my hand. Okay, I got it.
Bambi.
Thank you.
All I see is the participant list and the Zoom webinar chat. I don't see anything beyond that.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Oh, Randall, yes. I was just about to send you the thing, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
We're waiting on a quorum, Randall.
Okay. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one late.
You have, there are 10 members on this committee, so you need 6 of you for a quorum.
Okay. How many do we have so far?
3.
Okay.
To be counted as a quorum, people need to have their video feeds on and their faces in the camera.
Okay.
So it's considered basically stepping away from the table if you turn off your
Yeah.
feeds.
Can you see me?
I can see you. You could, if you'd be better if you angle it a little bit down towards your.
Okay. Okay.
That's better, yes. Looks like you got a haircut,
Okay.
so you're looking great.
I did. Thank you. Thankfully.
My hand is raised. Who is
Hi,
supposed
Bambi.
to?
You can speak.
Hey, Randall, are you the chairperson of this
I
committee?
am. Yes.
Okay, that was
Yes.
my question. I didn't know if there was someone else assigned to be chairperson or you.
It's unfortunately for you. It's me.
It's not
Good
unfortunate.
morning.
Morning.
Your hand raise feature disappeared again?
It looks like it was never there. I don't know.
It does look different today. Hannah, can you help? Where are those,
Trying to see, Sean, you're a co-host, so I don't think you have that button.
okay.
So you're not gonna see it on yours. For Steven, I'm trying to see why it's not popping up at the bottom of his. It's a webinar, so they show up a little bit differently than they do in a meeting.
Hey, this is Brenton. Stephen, whenever you click on your participant list and it pops up, I guess on the right-hand side of your screen, do you see 3 little dots next to probably a mute all button or a something like that?
I see invite, mute me, raise hand. There you go.
There you go.
So that's
I
all
know
I
like
need,
on
right?
mine, it collapses it and I have to click the little buttons, but on some people's, you don't have to click the 3 dots. It automatically gives it to you. So it's probably right there, just kind of hidden.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Brenton.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. So just to troubleshoot, will one of our attendees, I see Annie and Ashley and Constance, would one of y'all please raise your hand just to make sure y'all can, that we can, there you go. Thank you, Ashley. Great, 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 great. Okay, just to make sure the feature's there.
Okay, I'm back. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Randall.
Okay.
Randall, could you type
Yes.
your name? Could you right click? I think it is. And
I can change it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
No problem.
Okay, great.
Hey, Sean,
Yes.
is there a rule, or I don't know if there's a Robert's Rule of Order point on when do you call a meeting when members don't show up? Or is it case by case?
That's discretion of the chair. I mean, we're right now we're reaching out to the members who indicated they would be available today. So just give us a second. We're trying to see if make sure everybody has the link and has the stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Kim did tell me that she may not be able to make it today. Did y'all get that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'm talking to Courtney
Okay.
to try and figure out we're going to contact some people.
But Kim had a family issue, so she may not be able to make it today. So, and then Brenda Kosei mentioned to me, I talked to her by phone on Sunday, and she said that she would try to make it, but with the storm and all, she wasn't sure about connectivity for her.
Okay. Thank you. So Randall and Bambi and Steven, it doesn't look like you're gonna have a quorum. I mean, we're,
Okay,
I called Brenda, but her phone was breaking up. We're trying to reach out to Chris, but if Kim's not gonna make it, y'all are, I don't think with the other people who've indicated they were available today, y'all would make quorum.
So there's 12 people and 9 of them are missing in action?
There's
I don't understand.
There are 9 people, and well, not everyone had indicated they were available today. You know,
Okay.
we had to pick days where we had a majority, where we had quorums reached. So we knew, but not everyone indicated they were available today. So,
okay. Well, I guess we can try to, we have part 2 of this meeting scheduled for tomorrow at the same time. So I guess we'll just switch that to part 1.
well, you have to try and do it all.
Right.
I mean,
That's what I mean, is I guess we'll just try to do 1 and 2 tomorrow at this 10 o'clock scheduled time.
Chris just got on. I'm not sure if that makes a difference.
y'all wouldn't, it does, everything makes a difference. Let me see if let me see if I can get Brenda. If Brenda comes on, y'all would have a quorum.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. I apologize. I was waiting for an email with the stuff inside of it, but you guys post everything on the website, right?
Yes, sir.
Got it.
We're trying to get a quorum together so we can actually conduct business today.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're waiting on. How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. I feel good that at least here for New Orleans and where I'm at, tropical storm didn't seem to be too awful. My street flooded a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. So I'm glad I don't have that on my plate this week to have to deal with. Our building here in New Orleans has flooded a couple times, so it's always kind of a nerve-wracking situation when we're
Sure.
watching one of those events.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you're okay and everyone is safe.
Thank you. How are you, Randall?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So regardless of how this goes, if we can get a quorum or not, we're still scheduled to meet tomorrow as well from 10.
Yes, sir. If we don't, we need one more person for a quorum and then we can conduct today's business that you should see on the screen, the agenda. If we don't get that one person today, then we will simply do this meeting and the meeting for tomorrow all at tomorrow's scheduled time, which we can do. It'll just make it more hectic.
Gotcha. So I'm going to make sure that tomorrow is in my calendar right
Thank you, sir.
now.
Bambi, are you logged in twice or is that someone else with your name?
I don't think I'm logged in twice. Well, I had trouble at the beginning, so maybe I am.
I did too.
Okay, there's a Bambi that's muted right now. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't another committee member with the wrong name.
Okay. Jamar just came in and said that's him. He clicked on my link.
Okay.
Jamar.
Brenda is hopping on now.
Okay, great.
Brenda and Stephen, please turn on your videos so you can be counted as a quorum.
All right, I'm raising my hand.
I'm sorry, Brandy, you have the floor.
So, Sean, I know that in general, when we've had meetings and for the ADA accommodation, in order to have the ADA accommodations for people to, with disabilities to request to attend virtually, that the rule has been for people to be able to see the person. And I think that's a good practice. But I think now with the rules relaxed with an open meeting, you don't have to, like, anybody can have a meeting and people can just participate and be counted as a quorum if they're just participating even by phone.
So that rule is relaxed.
That's correct. I'm basing it off of what we had already established
Right.
through all this, and
Mhm.
the executive committee, like these things were presented to them. And,
Okay.
and
I just was saying that in case there's somebody who could not get video right this minute and we needed a quorum, that legally you can have.
Well,
Yes,
somebody
thank you.
on the phone.
the problem we have, there is a little problem with that is, and it's just how we do this. I mean, we can change how we do everything. We're trying to figure out the best ways to do it. When we do a webinar, it doesn't let you come in on a phone.
Right.
And if we do a webinar, we can, it's easier for us to like count quorums and know who's in the room and know who's on.
Right. No, I agree this is best practice. I was just saying if we.
Well, it is for some things, but then to your point, it does not allow full access by telephone. So it is. And so the council can, y'all can tell us to change how we do it. We're learning new features and what can happen and with the ramifications of each decision. But y'all have a quorum, Randall, so you can start your meeting, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting for the 1 year. Let's go ahead. Courtney, would you like to fill us in on what the committee is expected to do for today?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank y'all all for joining us. Today, well, we're gonna have to modify the agenda just a little bit due to the time, but
Right.
Sean,
That's
if you
why
wouldn't mind sharing your screen to show the agenda. But just to make sure that we are keeping in line with the council's mandate, there are certain things that we need to consider or that need to be taken into consideration for today's planning committee meeting. Whatever we don't happen to accomplish today, we'll have to jam pack into tomorrow,
right.
unfortunately. Okay.
I'm sorry, Courtney. If my screen's not cooperating with me. It's not.
Okay. Well, then let me see if I can share it.
Okay. Here it is. I got it. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Oh, is that the wrong one? No, this is it.
Does it have the links on it? Here, hold on.
No, it does not. Mine's mine was my Word version. My bad. So I was going to type on it.
Okay, I think I've got it.
Well, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. That's better. Okay, so can we get a little review of the budget here, Sean? Since you're with us today.
Well, I think you want to start off with the mandate and just the overview of the process before you get into the budget is what my recommendation would be.
Oh, sure.
So just to remind everyone, what the council's purpose is the council
Sure.
engaged in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change activities that promote self-determination, independence, productivity, integration, and inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in all facets of community life. So those three big mandates of advocacy, capacity building, and systems change are defined here. So, and we do spend a lot of our energy on advocacy, but some people, you need to realize we also spend a lot of resources and time on capacity building to increase the ability and skills of individuals. That's, so even like people first and, and partners and Lacan, those are all building of individual skill sets and trying to support them in their own capacity. But we also build the capacity of organizations and service providers and communities to fulfill all those outcomes. And we also engage in systems change. That's transformation or significant improvements of systems achieved through policy, capacity building, innovation, demonstration projects, education, advocacy activities, which furthers the inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in all aspects of community life. So do y'all have, y'all have been on the council for a while, most of you. So just wanted to make sure y'all keep that in mind. And so what we're going to do today is y'all want to concentrate on your contractual activities. And I'll get into the funding level for that. But tomorrow you're going to concentrate more on the advocacy and systems change, although some of the contractual activities do get into systems change as well. There are some restrictions on funds. There's no supplanting, so you cannot use federal funds to replace non-federal funds. So if there was some state dollars that were doing stuff and all of a sudden, and now's the time we really need to be wary of that. If there is a shortage or a shortfall of state resources, we cannot use federal resources to take the place and fill in those gaps and holes. And we don't want to duplicate and replace services for individuals and families. So then the last thing is just a standard conflict of interest. And so if your decision should be made in the best interest of the council and the people at large, and not influenced in any way, or even the perception of influence of, to any sort of financial or family or any connection to council members themselves. And so if you think you may have a conflict of interest, I ask that you reach out and let us know. We will help evaluate, and if the simple thing is, if you believe it's even a perception of a conflict of interest, just to refrain from participating in the discussion or deliberations of any decision, and do not vote. You can abstain from voting on that matter. Okay, so are there any questions on that?
I have none. Does anyone else?
Okay, and so the next thing is the overview. And we have a timeline that we usually follow with each annual planning process, and that timeline is in the fall or January, the council submits different concepts for this planning committee to consider. We also kind of solicit things all year round. People can send us ideas of what they think we should do. We do a bigger push every 5 years, which we've just kind of done that. And then typically this meeting occurs in February or March. And this plan is the initial plan is decided by the council in April, which then gives us your staff time to say, these are what ideas y'all really want us to go pursue and figure out the details of. And we have to have a 45-day comment period mixed into all this. So usually what happens is the council we have time for the council in April to make a plan. Thank you, Courtney. And then, you know, we send out solicitation of proposals and we get ideas. And then in July, y'all ratify the plan. But the plan starts on October 1st because we follow a federal year calendar. So we're in sort of a pickle right now, which is why we have at the end of this agenda, and y'all can make this vote anytime, is giving permission for the executive committee to make some final decisions to ratify the plan after the 45-day period, because the council will not have time to meet twice in this process to consider public comment or to make changes. I mean, that's what my idea, you know, we came up with, is terms of just a way for us to fulfill all the requirements and make it public, so that the executive committee would have a meeting that anybody can, including everybody on this committee, can vote on. But since it is the executive committee, I do think it would be more appropriate for that committee than this planning committee to finalize the plan. Y'all can disagree or whatever, but the short of it is because our timeline has been disrupted, some action needs to occur so that the council can try to get back on track as much as possible to try and initiate activities come October 1st. And we need to submit the plan to the feds on, when's the due date to submit it, Courtney? Like mid-August or, I mean,
It depends on if there are changes made to goals and objectives, then the plan has to be submitted to the feds by August 31st.
right.
If there are no substantive changes, then I have actually until the end of the calendar year to submit.
So that's another consideration for y'all to take. And when we were looking at it, we do have some recommendations to try to not change this. And this is, mind you, this is the 5th year of a 5-year plan, is to try to not make substantive changes to your goals and objectives would be my recommendation, so that we don't get caught in too many of these things. And these deadlines don't really bite us hard. Because as soon as the council votes on the plan, we're going to have to put it out for 45-day comment and then schedule, you know, sometime like in September, early September, an executive committee meeting to ratify it, so then we can execute some contracts to start October 1st. So does that give y'all a picture of where things are, and can I answer any questions? Courtney, why don't you put that timeline back up? I think that was a useful thing, and they can just see how where we've gotten knocked off, you know. So like all these February, March, and April and May activities have not occurred.
Right, they have to be done now, right?
You're in March right now.
To the best of our ability, we have to do all of this now.
Right. And now we have done some research. We have done some things to try and figure out what y'all, you know, what could happen. But usually we just, and we're still in the stage of kind of initially presenting those ideas. And so we could not formally like ask people whether they would consider doing anything for any amount of money, because that's y'all call to tell us to do that.
Yes.
So, now I am going to propose, once y'all tell us what's going to come out of here, we're not going to release the solicitation of proposals, but we're going to do some more research in terms of once we get y'all's sense of what y'all feel we should do. I've kind of prepped our staff to be ready to go out and seek projects and costs and cost to kind of, we've been struggling with cost estimates.
Yes.
Considering the changes for COVID-19 travel and gatherings, it has really made it difficult. So we will do our best. But so anyway, that's where you stand. Thank you, Courtney. Do y'all still want to see this up? I'll leave it up to Randall, but that's my explanation. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any.
But does anyone have any questions on it? Does anyone have any questions about it?
Okay. Okay, so the
So there are
next
no
thing,
questions?
all right, sorry.
Okay, so
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Randall.
I guess what we need to do is we need to have a motion from this committee today on, or to give the executive committee authority to do the work that needs to be done to get the plan ready within the prescribed time period.
We have that on your agenda for tomorrow.
Is it?
It's your purview to move it up, but yes.
No, we can leave it for tomorrow. I haven't studied tomorrow's agenda as closely as I should have, so that's my fault. We can leave it for tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have more members as well. So, but I do want it to get done by this committee, either today or tomorrow. Okay, so where are we on budget exactly, Sean?
So, am I showing my budget page? Let me see. Let me share this one. So this was last year's budget, and we've been having about 600,000. This shows a little bit more, but this is what y'all going to end up with. This year, what y'all have is you have your state fund dollars, which have been the same for the last few years. All those funds have been consistently committed to Felton and Families Regional Resource Centers. But that is a decision that the council makes every year, but it's sort of a understood practice. So the federal dollars, there's about $750,000, which is more than usual. But and part of that is because of the activities that are anticipated to non-occur because of COVID-19, the amount of travel and stuff. And the activities that did not occur in this last relative, the COVID shutdown. So, so y'all basically have $750,000. Why this is not. And so basically today, what y'all task is to figure out how y'all want to spend that. Which contractual activities do y'all want to accomplish using those funds? And this runs from, mind you, from October 1st of this year to September 30th of 20.
I was going to ask you to clarify the timeline. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, and if I can answer any, and usually we break it up. Usually we have ongoing planned contractual activities. Those are LACAN, partners, and events have been 3. And again, I'll go back to last year's. So, those these have been consistently in the plan. And so usually we just put these in here as a starting point, but y'all really have, it's y'all discretion and decision on the funding level, on whether anything's funded and how much. So I really don't want to put any dollar figures in here, but that's where you're going with this whole thing. And so your next thing on your agenda is starting with those, because those are ones that the council has demonstrated commitment and have been valued. And then you have to figure out how much money each one would be. And then you have, say, limited time contractual activities. So it's, right now we have customized employment certification training going on. We had the early childhood training going on. We had the videos that y'all wanted to produce that we never really got off the ground. So those could, so we still have a number of things, and we can go through the plan. We don't have to do it just like this. We can go and look at the plan and look at those activities, and we have our staff recommendations for each one of those. But it's y'all discretion with everything y'all look at, and then they have some other concept proposals and things for y'all to think about, and what that would look like, and about how much y'all would anticipate recommending to accomplish those activities. And so y'all were sent this, and I think it's linked in your in the agenda. Just if you want to write down numbers, but I will be, as y'all, whenever y'all say a number, I'll be putting it in here, and it'll calculate everything for us, and I'll pull this up whenever y'all want, so y'all can see the balance of what y'all have remaining. So it's y'all discretion how y'all do it, but typically y'all start off with the ongoing activities, drop a bunch of those in there, how much y'all think they should be funded, and then do the next set. Limited time, the new ones. That's the tradition.
Well,
This committee's run.
given that
Sean-
we do, go ahead.
So Sean, there are staff recommendations on every one of these items. Is that correct? That's what you said?
Yeah, we went through, and we struggled with amounts, because we don't know when people will be able to congregate safely again. And so without that, that factors in a lot. I mean, a lot of our activities have a lot of travel, like Partners is almost all travel, related. But we do have other recommendations for thinking of even how to present Partners, or even other activities in lieu of typical Partners that y'all can think about.
And of the issues that are of the kind of items that we'll be looking at, how many of them, I would imagine most of them are things the council has done previously. So we would have kind of an idea, a baseline of how much they cost.
Yes and no. We've never done anything like this before. So, I mean, when COVID-19 hit, and it was, I think, March 16th, when the executive committee indicated like no in-person activities. That was a few $100,000 of budgeted activities that were like not going to happen. We had early childhood center trainings. We had customized employment trainings. We had our Partners class was disrupted in half. We didn't do any yellow shirt days or any of our Lacan travel, or we did make some modifications. So our sex abuse and exploitation trainings went online, and we made some adjustments as we could, but there was a huge hit on, like what was anticipated. So I do think there are different ways we could still present, capacity building opportunities for people that are would be more on utilizing more online technology and stuff, but like to do like a partners class and that same experience. You know, there was a, you know, we did watch somebody from New York does it, but it's really more like a college course than I think the experience that people have received through an in-person partners class, and the connections and ability, you know, I think they're, but again, it's, you know, I think we have to think differently now. So I have all the budgets, I guess, from years past. I can give you how much it has tended to cost us. I can tell you how much it's not going to cost us this year. I can't do the crystal ball and tell you, as you know, how our society emerges out of this COVID-19 pandemic, what impacts that will have on all these things, because that will just have to collectively be okay with uncertainty.
I think it's just our new norm, Sean.
Yeah, and so we can give you some ideas, Chris, but I can't. I wouldn't wager a bet on it.
Well, look, I think it's prudent to say, you know, the things that we normally move forward every budget, I think it's prudent to put them back and then just discuss discuss the funding level and how we carry those things out, because they have been historically and traditionally done by, I know, every council I've sat on the last 4 years. So I think it's safe for this committee to recommend to put those line items in place, and then we begin to discuss how much to fund them by.
Right. So, and Sean, I know things are obviously very different this year. Is this typically how we go about building a budget?
I mean, not building a budget, you're building a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, usually it's broken up, and I'm going to switch my screen. And so this, I have all these little tabs open. So if y'all can see this is this current year's plan. And what we did was we went through and just added some notes about ideas of what we would recommend you do, right? So like People First, you know, some funding for People First to do training. We think you should continue to maintain language and offer them some funds where they can tap into some national experts or other people for training opportunities. How much y'all do is up to y'all, like the cost. But I do think we recommend that. When it gets to partners, we have kind of 4 recommendations. Some of them are not even partners, in my opinion. Like once you go to individual sessions, you're not covering all of the different, you know, partners competencies in their program are set by a national group. And so if you do individual sessions, you're not, in my opinion, you're not really following that partners model.
I agree with you.
Well, but we've done that in the past when I think we did about 3 or 4 years ago, we did not have an adequate number of applicants for partners, and the council revised the plan, and Liz, Gary, and Ashley McReynolds, you know, mostly did these great, went around the state and trained people on advocacy. And it was just a different way to still build capacity of people, but not really have the full partners experience. But then whether we do partners online, whether we try to do that, at least some of them, and maybe start off a partners class and get some of the competencies done online. And then when we can get them together, or even maybe get them together regionally where they can get together safer, I mean, was an idea. maybe do some things for the alumni and build their capacity and try and re-engage them. And then we still have the class from this year, the 20 partners class that was cut short, and you know, whether we finish them, whether we give them the rest of those sessions online, or, I mean, at a minimum, we told them we have a class, we'll invite them back in to.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just putting that out there to factor that in as well. So those
I
are,
think Bambi has a question or a comment showing. She has her hand raised.
yes, sir.
Hi, so my question is, and this may have already been said and I missed it, or not out of order, but in regards to partners, so you're saying that the session, since I know they haven't been in person, has anything taken place? Has they been done online? They haven't been done online. So was that class just being told just to hold off and they will continue at some point?
That's what I think we should do. But I don't know how, you know, we would finish covering all the competencies and give them the experience of, and some of the even what they would do, we would have to revise a lot of that. But I think.
So the recommendation is, so the money that was set aside for this year has not been spent, obviously, a large majority of it. So what happens with that, the rest of that budget? And then, so if the people, are they just gonna go into, like, say, offer them to be next year's class, just basically a restart? So I guess are we gonna offer them a restart? Is there a recommendation to offer a restart for next year's class? And then how is this year's budget going to be spent? Or what's the recommendation for the rest of this?
So for the last few years, the amount of money has been about $600,000. So I've already factored in a bunch of money that was not spent
Okay, got that.
into the full amount y'all have to do all activities.
Okay.
Um,
So the unspent money, including partners, is why there's an increase in this year's budget from, it's usually 600,000 to 750. So that's taken in account for that spent money.
Yes, ma'am.
And so
Yes.
now we have to consider, do we want to include in this budget to have a class next year, which will likely offer the people who are selected for this class to be able to restart for next year?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's one consideration. I mean, there's
Okay.
other options, you know, that, and, you know, then when we get to LeCan, you know, there, it kind of gets broken into two chunks, really, because one is to consider offering like enhanced training online for our LeCan leaders to build their capacity, or people who are seeking to be leaders. And then our events contract has been a mechanism to provide capacity building for LeCan members. And I think we could still offer a bunch of opportunities online, you know, that are not just not in person at this time.
So
But-
are we moving to the part of the agenda where we're addressing activities, or are we still talking about budget?
This is budget. These are contractual activities is where we are.
Okay, well, we still needed to go over the solicitation of concept responses and the council standing committee recommendations.
Okay.
I think at this juncture, since we're talking about next year, aren't we, essentially? Then I think the prudent thing to do is to schedule it. I mean, obviously, make it a planned activity, give it the funding it would need, or about how much we think it would need. And I like the idea of us reaching out to the current class that was canceled due to the COVID pandemic and giving them an opportunity to restart or to participate in the 21 class. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share or add?
So I think what Courtney was bringing up is y'all have two other sets of documents, and it would really, it's up to you, Randall, y'all can, because those would go under limited time activities, but it's, but there are two hyperlinks in the agenda with both activities that were solicited from the public and we received, and then concepts that were received from the council. And that's those two hyperlinks in there. So I don't know if it's better to go over those when you get to the next set, but it's up to just make.
I think so. I think we'll do the next set.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we have any questions or comments by anyone on the committee? All right, so we're adding in the things we usually move forward, correct, Sean?
That's where I would start. So then figure
That's where I
out,
want to start. Since we're not getting any feedback from, I guess everyone's in agreement, I certainly think it's the best way to move forward.
Yeah.
It's something that the council's already agreed. I mean, we have a track record of doing, and it's programming we all have agreed to and voted on as council members before. I think it's wise to put it in as a starting point.
so I think just as a starting point in terms of, and y'all can give direction on which type of activities. I mean, I've heard y'all in terms of the class of 20, but y'all could further define what y'all mean, but because that will determine how much money is needed. So then you have to figure out how much money you're going to commit to partners, to LACAN, and to the events contract. If that's where, or those activities. And get some definition of what the kind of expectation of what those would look like.
Okay.
So Partners has been funded at 80,000. This last 2 years, it's went up to $90,000. Last year, we did not spend the full 90,000. That was put
How
in.
much did we spend last year?
I think I actually did that in here. No, 19. Can y'all see, is it 19 showing up? I don't know what y'all are seeing.
I can't see the year. It looks like it.
So yeah, so this was the 19 data, and this was these expenditures over here. So it was like $71,000
Okay.
in total. I don't have this year fully done, but and I have to go open up a different thing to see the anticipated expenditures, but I think we're probably going to hit about like 50 grand or something like that, 60 grand maybe total. Probably 50 grand is my guess. So, but I don't have a full year on it. But so does that help y'all?
It does.
When you do, let me just tell you something about budgeting, because everybody's like, we didn't spend all the money. You can never spend all the money. And maybe that's how I live. Like how much ever money I get, I can't spend it all. Otherwise I'd be bankrupt. And so whenever y'all vote on a project and we contract a cost reimbursement contract, I need enough money that I never go over. So
You need a cushion,
I need a cushion. That's right.
financial cushion, if you will. Yeah.
And partners is one of those that I don't know how many participants are going to be in. I don't know how long they're going to last. I don't know. There's some unknowns. So I'm just telling y'all that so that y'all know that, you know, we know we're not going to spend it all. So when I see 70,000, 71,000, but y'all originally budgeted 80,000, that was a pretty good guess. You know, I mean, could have gotten closer, but we can't go over. So,
So how much of a cushion do you usually like to see for a program like Partners?
as little as possible. I mean, I try to utilize all the resources y'all commit appropriately to achieve the end. You know, but the short of it is, with every cost reimbursement initiative that occurs, we are very cognizant of not making sure we do not go over. So I don't want y'all to worry about that. Y'all make me worry about that. So, you know.
Okay.
So, Sean, are there any activities? I mean, everything seems to be more difficult to do, and we can assume that that could continue into certainly fiscal year 2021 that we're looking at. Are we expecting any activities as a result of COVID and kind of new normal we're in to actually cost more?
No.
Right.
I mean, there might be some COVID-19 activities y'all come up with that would have not been considered, but no. I mean, even these meetings, Chris, I am going to recommend, you know, we move some money around. Usually, you know, like I'll just use y'all, the council's travel budget is about 50 grand a year, which we never use, but I need that cushion because I never know who's coming from where. But then I want all these meetings transcribed or have closed captioning running on them and stuff like this. And so that's going to cost us a little more than we usually would do, but because of the offset in travel, it'll be a cost savings even for the council to hold virtual meetings. So yeah, that helps you? A huge amount.
Sean, I believe Brenda has her hand raised. Brenda, you have the floor. Is Brenda with us?
I'm just trying to see where
Okay.
we're at. Are we at a motion? Are we at discussion? Are we at public comment?
We have been discussing, and we need to at some point move to public comment because I believe we have a few. Hannah is telling us, but we have been discussing the plan as far as what we want in it and trying to get some idea of cost because of the difference in savings due to the shutdown and the pandemic for COVID.
Yeah, I see one public comment in the chat. I see one public coming in the chat and another one.
Okay, would you like to share those? Sean, can we share the public comment?
Sure. I mean, which public comment are you looking at?
There are two, right? There's one from Ashley McReynolds. And I can't read it from where I am. So I'm asking one of y'all, if you can see it, can you read it? It's how much my screen cuts off. I can't read the whole comment there.
So Ashley's question is, how much of a cushion is needed? 20,000 seems like a really big cushion.
I think I kind of touched on that. Sean, how much of a cushion would you say? You said as little as possible, which is not a number. What do you anticipate your cushion to look like? What would you prefer?
I think y'all should think of it like that. I think y'all should think of, we'll figure out what the activity should cost. And I just use like partners that I had a full year of data on last year. We were worried we would run out of money, and y'all added $10,000 to it. And we ended up not using that $10,000 at all.
Right.
So, so, you know, it was good that y'all did it because we were worried we may go over, but
I remember.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think y'all should worry about that.
So if we just gave it the 90,000 we've been giving it, you know, that's would give you more than enough to do whatever we decide we need to do with the 21 class, right?
Yeah, and doing the 20 class. I mean, they're halfway over.
I understand, but that would give you more than enough to do.
Yeah,
that,
I think that would be more than enough. And without travel for 3 months or whatever, I'm trying to figure out when we would even anticipate travel going back. Maybe even less, you know, but
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But since we have basically 2 classes to conduct with this money, I mean, we're talking about a year out.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to give the opportunity for the 20 class to complete. We want to have a whole other 21 class, hopefully. And I think committing $90,000 to both those efforts is fair and in line with the council's normal thinking and mandate on the partners class.
So I put $9,000 in y'all little spreadsheet as a starting point.
Okay. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add?
There's just a question in the Q&A section.
Can you read that comment for me, please, Stephen?
It's from Liz Gary. $50,000 for 3 months of classes for PIP this year. In 2019 was only $70,000 for 6 months and 21 graduates.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Liz.
Liz also has her hand raised.
Okay, Liz, you have the floor.
Which yes, we'll pull her in. You'll take.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know if y'all could hear me. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, you have the floor, Liz.
Oh, thank you, Randall. I just wanted to, I'm trying to get clarification. Are you saying 90,000 for them to complete the class plus a whole new class next year? Am I hearing that correctly?
I'm committing the 90,000 we normally do. This is the budget. This is our planning for next year. So I'm committing for next year's money to be the same as it's always been for the last, what, 2 years, it's been 90,000. I've just said, let's commit 90,000 to the 21 class. And we do have some money left from this class that wasn't able to be completed due to COVID. And my presumption is between those two figures, we should have more than committed to complete both efforts.
Okay, so you're saying the additional 40,000 that would be left from this year plus the 90,000 for next year. Is that what you're saying? So it'd be 130,000 to complete this year's class plus have next year's class. Is that correct?
Correct. But we're talking about next year in this particular instance. That would be correct. Yes.
Okay, so in other words, I'm just asking, so trying to still complete this year's class this year before December 31st is separate than next year's 90,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, and I just wanted to keep in mind that if something happens and you're not able to finish this year's class with the 3 months left, the bonding that occurs in person is so much different than, and I understand we're in different times, I understand virtual and all that stuff, but I'm saying just to keep that in mind, that the impact is going to be completely different. And I know we're in different times, but I just wanted y'all to keep that in mind, because the whole partners thing has always been the most effective when people can come together as like a family. And I just wanted to share that, and I appreciate y'all opening me up to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. As a graduate of the program myself, I happen to agree that the preferred method, I think all of us agree, would be to be able to gather and do the program as we normally would and have come to expect in person. And we certainly would prefer that, and we'll look at our options as we move forward. But I just want to be sure the funding is there to do it the way we normally do, and we'll adjust it accordingly. But I think 90,000 for 21 is more than enough to complete the project as the council would have us do.
Absolutely, Randall. I can promise you 90,000 is good. I was able to do it every year, stay within my budget, and still give a pretty, give them what they needed with those classes. So 90,000 is a very good price.
Terrific to hear. Thank you. Okay, and so that issue is done. Do we have, what about LeCan expenditures, Sean? What do you anticipate there?
We typically have been spending about 200 grand a year. And that's mostly due to vacancies, unfortunately, with a couple of the regional LeCan leaders, and we continue to have, that's a consistent thing. But then we also now will not have as much travel.
Right.
So y'all have been committing $225,000 to LeCan. I don't think that full amount will be necessary if the travel is not as intense. So maybe something like $210,000 would be more than adequate.
I was going to say somewhere between 2 and 210. So I'm glad to hear you give us that number. You want to say 215 just to be safe?
You can say whatever you like. I mean, I think 215 would be safe. I think 210 would probably be safe.
Okay.
You can stay within 210, but it's your call.
Let's do 215 just in case, because you have a lot of uncertainty built into this coming year, because we don't know, if we have more, great, but I don't want y'all to run out. I want y'all to have what you need to be first to be able to design whatever programming we need to design, however we need to design it to get their important work done. So where does that leave us now?
$445,000 to go. You have not done events. You have not done people first training.
Yes, let's look at people first. What have we been normally committing to their effort?
About $10,000.
We can increase that. I think it's safe to say, with the surplus we're looking at with our savings on travel, wouldn't everyone agree that we can commit more to that effort than we normally would? And just to be clear, you said $10,000, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I just read the caption that said 110,000. So just to be clear, it's $10,000 we usually commit to people first. I'd like to hear from other members of the committee, but I think we could do 20, don't you, Sean?
Randall, y'all can do whatever you want.
This is
Right.
great.
Help you. Bambi has her hand raised.
Bambi?
I have my physical hand raised. So I think just a point, I think just using this, doing this webinar or this meeting virtually, it does make it a little bit difficult, Randall, you're saying for people to speak. So I'm not spoken, I'm not, and it's just a little bit, I guess just maybe getting used to it.
Right.
So for the people first training, I would like to know, like they had 10,000 in this year's budget, what was done, and has there been any discussion with them as far as if we want to give them more money, which I would support that, but just like to know what is it that we would ask them to do additionally or different for more funding or larger amount of funding.
I don't think they had used their $10,000 this year, but
didn't they do something in?
That was like in August of last year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
They hosted a conference in August of last year.
Okay.
And
were they planning one? Do we know if they were planning one for this year? And like everything else, it has been shelved or canceled due to COVID?
But right, I mean, and they maybe still be able to offer something online. That our funds are still available to them if they so choose to do that.
Good. It's good for
Ms.
them
Kelly
to know
Monroe
that.
has a public comment. They did not use their money because of COVID. They had to cancel all activities, and yes, they were planning one.
Okay, great. Thank you. I believe that was Kelly who said that, right? Kelly Monroe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Well, given the fact that we have a surplus we didn't expect to have, I think committing, they're a self-advocate organization. I don't think anybody objects to the work they generally do. And I would commit $20,000 to their efforts in the 21 budget, unless someone has an objection or a reason different. I'd like to see what they could tell us they could do with it.
Well, I think if you put some money out there, then I would know we could just go ask them.
Yeah, let's just commit $20,000.
By the time the council meeting comes around, we would have their feedback on that.
Yes.
You said 20,000, Randall?
I said 20. Anyone else can put out a different number, but I think 20 is a fair start for next year.
There's a public comment from Katie Corcoran. Are LaCan supplies such as folders, pens, notepads, shirts included in the LaCan budget?
Mostly, yes. I think sometimes we do events does cover some different things, but I think a lot of that's in the LaCan contract under supplies.
Ms. Brenda Kase has her hand raised.
Yes, Brenda, you have the floor.
If we have an agency or a representative of an organization speaking or in the chat, could it please be identified? Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And just to be clear, I mentioned Kelly Monroe earlier, and she's the executive director of the Arc of Louisiana, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so where are we now, Sean, as far as budget with that 20 added in?
Yeah, at $425,000. Now, what y'all need to do is consider the proposals that were submitted and the concepts recommended by.
Yes, let's begin to do that. I just wanted to get us started because we were having trouble getting our minds wrapped around this or being able to participate. But yes, let's move into those suggestions. Courtney, do you have anything you'd like to add as we begin to do that?
No, sir.
Okay.
So here they're on a single page, and so you have a number of them. Team Dynamics is this proposal to continue the relationships and intimacy preventing exploitation workshops. The same price, and that's they have provided those workshops via webinar the last, I think, 3 months or however long. It took us taken a little while to get it set up, but there was not much delay in that. So it's basically a continuation of that. Here's another proposal by Team Dynamics for a 6-topic 3-day healthy and first unhealthy relationships training series. And I'll read that.
Let me just say before we move any further, I think the Team Dynamics thing item has been successful. You know, I know from my service on the self-determination committee, that's been very well received, very well done. I have seen no reason not to continue the funding they're asking us for.
If I may interject one thing.
Yes, Courtney.
So these concept proposals are just for consideration for activities in the plan. These proposals are not formal bids for these activities to be conducted. So I just want to make that clear.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. It's hard for me to shift my brain from one aspect to the other, but again, on the issue of concepts, I think that commitment by us to give them that funding and continue that work should be there in the plan.
So this one is for 6 topics, you know, in 3 different locations. And that might be web-based until we can get locations down. But it's, you can see the topics for the training or consent, anatomy, orientation, identity, health and wellness, public versus private places and behavior, types of relationships, healthy versus unhealthy. 4 is friends, dating and communication skills.
Wait, Sean, what you're saying is confusing to me. Can you start over and say where you're reading that from? I apologize for interrupting.
Sorry, these are concept proposals that were received publicly.
Yeah, I know that, but where are you at on, because I'm seeing on the screen is different than what, it's not correlating with your voice, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see what, I'm struggling with this screen share thing because it keeps telling me I'm sharing one thing. I can't see what I'm sharing.
Sean, would you like for me to share my screen?
Sure, why don't you do that? Now we all know what you're sharing.
Brenda, you have a question or comment?
Yes. In regards to, and I know we're not looking at the actual funding, but one thought I had was, how long ago was this information submitted? And did the entities, do we permit the entities to readjust their projected budget in consideration of there may be some different accommodations need because of COVID-19?
That's an excellent question. Sean or Courtney, do y'all have the answer to it?
I'm trying to remember when these were, it's a good question, Brandon. These were submitted a while back. Courtney, do you remember the dates that we submitted, we received these? Because I believe it was in February, March, when we had the deadline to get some of these in. Brenda, I'll go look that up for you all as we move forward.
Thank you, Sean. So trying to figure out where we are as far as the concept of proposal. You were talking about the next item, which was the 6 options, right?
Yeah,
Sean?
it was 6 topics presented over 3 different locations, basically, which is it's just a little more intensive than what their single session trainings are. And so you would, it's this second one right here that's rolling up. And so it would be fairly intensive 3-day training series with 6 different topics. And those 3-day trainings will be, the recommendation is at 3 different locations, or
Around the state?
correct.
Okay. I mean, I like the proposal. I see no reason not to include it. I think it would be a good, obviously, if it starts now, it would probably be more web-based, but I think that the concept is a good one. Does anybody have any feedback they'd like to add? Questions or comments?
So Brenda, to answer your question, these concept proposals were received by March 13th, just as COVID-19 shutdown kicked in. So.
So Sean, in addition to these proposals, what other considerations do we have to make in terms of the funding that we have left, provided that we are all in agreement with the allocations we've already talked about?
Say your question again, Chris.
So we've agreed to allocate X amount when we were talking about the other issues, and now we've kind of moved on to looking at these, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and just because we decide that we're interested in a topic doesn't mean we're adopting the amount of money that's associated with it. Is that right or no?
Correct. I mean, you don't have to adopt it. You could do nothing. You could, these are concept proposals, I think is what Courtney was trying to explain is, you know, what I really think you should do is think of conceptually, is this a direction or a type of activity you would want? And then it doesn't even guarantee the person who submitted the proposal would be funded for it. But since they came up with it and they kind of have it spelled out, you would think they would have a jump on everybody when we do solicitation proposals, but not necessarily. I mean, there could be another entity that could potentially bid. And y'all could do it for different amounts. And y'all could tell us to negotiate, you know, how y'all really want the activity to look. And as to Brenda's point, is these things were submitted with anticipated cost of, you know, that, and they might have additional costs. Like some people might not have the same capacity to do things virtually. They might adjust some of their cost variables, but right. I mean, these are just concepts for consideration. How it comes out is completely up to y'all.
So if we were to approve a concept, then you would take it and create a bid system, an RFP or something like that?
We could do solicitation proposals just because of the nature of the work and the amounts. We don't necessarily have to do an RFP for everything, not even most things, because it doesn't meet the legal requirement to do that. But we do solicitation proposals and then have those proposals evaluated by y'all or some sector of the council to say that's who what y'all will go with. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. It's a Steve.
Yes, Stephen, you have the floor.
Is there an age requirement for this particular training? Because I think this would be something beneficial for the teenage population. I mean, just reading the outlines and yeah, that would have been my question. Or is it only for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
Which one are you on, Stephen?
The one proposed by Team Dynamics.
Yeah, I don't know if it limited it. It's
I don't believe it limits,
age.
or it has not previously, I don't believe.
Yeah, so again, like this, I think to Chris's question, Stephen, if y'all see a concept and y'all want it applied to a specific demographic or way or whatever, that's y'all purview.
Miss Liz Gary had a question, which has been answered. Can any new concepts be added at this time? And the answer was yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes if it falls underneath one of the goals.
Correct.
Right.
Also, Team Dynamics has submitted 2 activities or 2 concepts. So was there a particular one that holds the council's interest or this committee's interest more than the other?
Honestly, I like them both from what I see. I mean, I'd love feedback from the committee. It's not just all about me and what I think. So I think there was a comment from Ashley McReynolds saying that they'd like to see us fund both. I thank you for that, Ashley.
Ms. Liz Gary has another question. Can we add SDM training concept since it has now passed? And I believe we were actually going to address that a little later in our agenda.
Okay, so we'll talk about that when we get to that agenda point.
Correct.
Okay,
For clarification, what is SDM?
I was about to say the same thing, Stephen. Thank you.
For decision making.
Thank you, Sean.
Staff recommend y'all do consider providing training on support decision making.
And I absolutely agree with that. I think given that there's a new law, I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that gets put out and understood by our community as to what the new law entails and what the new rules are.
So I think we should include both of those proposals from, what is it, Team Dynamics?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bambi. I happen to agree with you. I'm glad someone else agrees. Anyone else have anything to add?
So, I think I just very quickly scanned these. I think like 4 out of the 7 or maybe 5 out of the 7 proposals have to do with combating sexual assault or understanding healthy relationships, kind of all fall under the same umbrella. I don't know if we would want to just create a larger project that encompasses them all and put them out there, or if we want to individually accept each of them. I mean, they're all a little different.
I think because they're all a little different, I like the idea of individually accepting them.
Okay.
Miss Annie Coomer has raised her hand.
Yes, Annie, you have the floor. Is Annie with us? Is she able to participate?
I think she has to be moved over. Oh, she was.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I submitted some of the proposals that are also about relationship and risk reduction. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer any of them as to how they're different or how they're similar or anything you may need.
Good. Thank you, Annie. So we've committed to accept both proposals Team Dynamics submitted, correct?
That's what I put on my sheet. I just put the amounts that they had.
Yeah. So where does that leave us budgetarily, just with the amounts they requested?
Y'all still have $364,000.
Okay.
Right, so I guess, are we going through the list from top to bottom? I just don't want the other proposals that seem to have the potential to be very similar to the ones at the top to have been overlooked just because they happen to be placed at the bottom of the page. So do folks understand or see the similarities between the Ms. Comer's proposals and the team dynamic proposals?
And so I think what we're doing right now is accepting the concepts.
We
and
are,
dollar
yes.
amount.
We
And
are.
so
I asked Sean just for clarification on my end, but we're not considering dollar amounts now. We're considering proposals. Like, do we as a council want to participate or help these projects?
And so I agree with Chris that some of them, especially the ones about, sexual exploitation and those type of things, kind of seem the same between some of those proposals. And so, I don't know, do we merge them to make like those that are like really similar and then just let whoever, presents a final proposal and then we accept that and decide to fund it? Is that what we need to do right now? Do we need to merge some of these or?
I mean, we can't. I mean, I'm leaving it up to I don't want to just tell you as a committee what to do. I'm here to facilitate, but I mean, it does look like they're very similar, but Annie has just said she'd be more than she's here with us and she'd be more than willing to talk about her submission. So we could choose to let her do that somewhat and help us narrow that down, or we can certainly merge topics. It's they are similar, so it's up to the committee as far as how we move forward. I acknowledge and agree they are similar.
And so, I mean, I think to go back to what Chris was saying, they all seem very similar. So do we want to have somehow combining all this and asking for proposals that contain all of these components and see what people come back to? Like saying, all of them, in my opinion, seem like to be good information and good ideas on how to structure and that type of thing. So do we want to go back and say that we want to fund this type of training in regards to like the sexual, exploitation training and that type of thing? Do we want to just put that into one category and let people come back with a proposal that we decide to fund? Or, I mean, we might fund two different projects.
Right. I mean, we're not limited to one. We could choose to fund any number of them if we agree they're good and we want to see them put forward.
We
I
have
like
two
that
people
idea.
with hands raised. We have Miss Annie Coomer and Miss Brenda Kase.
Brenda, you're on the committee, so we'll give you the chance to speak first.
Yes, we did have two questions or comments from the committee about demographics. Is it my understanding that we can broaden the demographics right now, or we have to wait until we get to the SOP?
We can do it now, can't we, Sean?
And my other, I do concur with Mr. Rodriguez and merging of similar concepts, as well as looking into adding additional concepts as allowed.
Okay, thank you. I think that's wise and prudent to do, since they are all very similar in scope and and what they entail. So, and I'm glad the committee seems to largely agree. So Courtney, are you following us as far as what we're hashing out here?
So I believe we are trying to decide on, we want to adopt these concepts, and the committee probably needs to make a decision on an implementation strategy. If you want to do trainings, if you want to just provide resources and information, I believe that's what's needed to be decided today. Now, as far
Okay.
as adopting actual bid proposals, the amounts, that's up for this committee to decide the total amount for this type of activity that will be addressed on the plan.
And that didn't necessarily
Demographics,
have to be today, right?
right. So this committee is just deciding that they want to include relationships and intimacy or sexual exploitation on the 2021 action plan. You will
Okay.
also get to decide what kind of activity you would prefer to be implemented through this activity and how much you want to allocate for that activity. As far as demographics for people submitting bids, we will be getting corporate information, so to speak, whenever we do issue a solicitation of proposals. I wanted to make sure that Ms. Brenda Case had brought that up, and I wanted to make sure that I addressed that for her as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Reminder that Ms. Annie Coomer has her hand raised.
Yes, I was about to say, if you, thank you. If you're finished with your comments, I'd like to give Annie a chance to speak.
Sure.
And thank you, Courtney.
No problem.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak again. I just want to explain, I can't speak for Team Dynamics, but for us, the curriculum that Jeff and I use is a peer-reviewed curriculum. It's been adopted by other DDCs in the United States as a standard curriculum. The woman who created the curriculum is an individual with a disability, and the curriculum was created for people with disabilities by people with disabilities. It's also team taught between a family member of someone with developmental disabilities and an individual with developmental disabilities. So that's just a little bit of background about what Jeff and I have been trying to do. Any data that we collect is in a HIPAA compliant program, and we use standard curriculum that's been peer reviewed. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
This curriculum would be available to anyone around the state. Is that correct?
Well, what Jeff and I would like to do is go to each, how the state of Louisiana is divided up into 10 different districts of Families Helping Families. We would like to utilize the Families Helping Families and go to each different district and do a course for the individuals there. And we've also submitted a proposal for a 5-year concept, which they're doing in, I want to say it's New York, but I don't have the paperwork in front of me, with the DDC there, where you find people who would become team teachers, and then Jeff and I teach those people to become team teachers, and then it's a self-sustaining program throughout the state of Louisiana. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So in other words, you'll have ambassadors. Once they get the training, they can become ambassadors and they can train others. And
Right. So that way, this program, we would eventually be non-essential. We'd no longer be in the picture. It would be people throughout the state who have received the training and have the same training for everyone, so that it's across the board. It's a standardized training. So, any other questions?
I like the concept.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Yes,
submission.
my hand is raised.
I'm sorry, Brenda, you have the floor.
Okay. Who is Jeff? Who is Ms. Coomer speaking on the behalf of? And the curriculum mentioned in the proposal, is this where the staff has the opportunity to tell us if they vetted it, or does that come later?
Those are wonderful questions. Thank you for asking. I have a company called Beyond Accommodations, and what I do is I'm a mother of 3 children with autism, and I'm married to a man with autism, and I try to look for gaps in our systems to find what programs will benefit people with disabilities the most. Jeff Arsenault is completed the training with me from Elevate Us Training, and he team teaches with me. He is a well-known advocate in the state of Louisiana, and he also works for Florida Parish's Human Services Authority.
Okay, the company mentioned, well, I don't know if you submitted this on behalf of the company you just mentioned, not the curriculum, but that information is good to know. And can the staff, I don't know if we can include it or if it's going to be in the transcript or what have you, so we can identify and research.
And the curriculum that I use is from Elevate Us Training. You can look them up on the internet. She's been doing this type of training. Catherine McLaughlin has been using this curriculum and training for over 20 years. I also have a copy of her peer review. So if the DDC needs to see that copy of her peer review, and she's also offered to speak to anyone who has any questions or any concerns about the curriculum.
Just for clarification, your company will be the one facilitating this this training?
Yes, my
Okay.
company would be the one facilitating this training, and it would always be myself and Jeff Arsenault doing the training, because we're the ones who are trained to do them. So it wouldn't be anyone else, it would always be us.
Thank you, Annie. Bambi, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, so first off, I want to say I would like to there to be a condensed item, just one item that addresses the training towards relationship and sex education. So I think that should be one item in compiling these proposals or these, what is it called? I think I have the wrong word. These ideas together, and then get some proposals that we can see what we want to fund. And I think we should, in regard to the question about what should it be based on, like, was it like a resource toolkit or some type of training? I think it should include both, and see what type of proposals we get and decide on what we fund based on those proposals. And the second thing I want to bring up, because of something that Brenda said, it triggered a very important point that I think we need to include in anything that we accept in regards to demographics. I don't know if she was talking about the age of, like, who would be the focus age group, whether it be teens or adults or that type of thing. But we also need to look at the demographics. If we're gonna have people, if we're gonna have programs in which we are doing any type of training of people, that whoever we're funding needs to be able to demonstrate in their proposal how they are reaching out to racially diverse groups of people. I think that needs to be a part of any proposal, an expectation that that's a part of their plan. They have a plan on how they're going to do that outreach.
Agreed.
Ms.
I agree
Brenda
with
has
you.
her hand raised.
Yes, Ms. Polazola, that is exactly what I was thinking of when I mentioned demographics i.e. their diversity outreach, their targeted population. This is what we need to see even in the concepts and definitely in the proposals.
Absolutely. Thank you both, ladies. I agree wholeheartedly. So Courtney, do you have all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so where are we now? Or where do we need to be, Courtney? Because I know
We have one more proposal from Ms. Coomer that is not sexual abuse or relationship training related. It is employment related. So I have that one displayed right now. And then after that is another proposal from LSU Human Development Center.
How many proposals do we have left to review?
These two.
Okay. So let's look at Annie's employment proposal here.
Can I speak?
Yes, Bambi, you have the
Okay.
floor.
In regards to employment, I really like this. We've done a lot of work in our office in regards to employment, and we have done some work in trying to outreach to Chamber of Commerce. But there's just so much work to be able to be done in regards to employment. I think that this would really help and complement some of the other initiatives that we have in the state. So I would, if there's a motion or however we need to do it, to include this. And I would be glad to help or support whatever organization would get funding for this.
Well, we can just agree today now that we as a committee want to see this put forward as a proposal.
Yeah.
And it's done.
And this is a very important component that people bring up often in our employment meetings. And it just has not, it's just such a big task that it just hasn't been addressed. So it'd be great if we had some funding behind it.
Absolutely. Anything that helps us to be able to advance employment issues, I think is phenomenal. Obviously this is a proposal. So, we'll look and see what other proposals we get, but I think the concept is a great one. And he's certainly done some good work here. And I thank her for putting it forward, but yeah, the concept I think is great, and I agree it should be included. Okay, and this one is from the Human Development Center, correct, Courtney?
Correct. This is the last concept proposal.
When it talks about RSNs, what are those? It says collaborate. I'm on the first bullet point on the page there. Collaborate with 2 RSNs in Louisiana to provide.
It stands for Ready Start Networks.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay, great. I knew I overlooked it. Thank you.
This is Bambi again. I know over the past 10 years that I've been involved with the DD Council, we have funded these type of inclusive early childhood type initiatives. And so I'm just wondering, like, how is this different? Is this just going to be focused on another population? Can anyone share if they know how this is any different or different focus than what we've funded in the past?
Great question, baby. Thank you.
It seems very similar to what, I mean, our current activity right now that got disrupted because of COVID-19 is we are actually contracting with LSU HTC to provide that training and technical assistance. So this seems to be a continuation of that, but I could be wrong. You know, it's, and we have funded repeatedly, you know, a lot of training to try and get early childhood centers to use more inclusive practices.
We certainly want to continue to do that. So to the extent that we would need to add that into this plan, I think we can do so.
I mean, this seems very similar to what is in the current plan, Bambi, to answer your question simply. If not identical, I can't differentiate, you know, between.
So it's just essentially asking us to continue to carry out the work in the coming year, correct? It looks that way anyway.
It appears so. I mean, I do have, you know, while y'all consider this one, related to the relationships and sexual exploitation, et cetera, abuse, I do see differences between some of those proposals. And as your staff, I would request y'all to provide clarity instead of just having a general, you know, seek out proposals, because I feel like we already have some proposals and they deal with different levels of intensity of training and different sort of curriculum and approaches that that I would prefer a little more guidance in terms of what y'all vision is relative to that. Thanks.
Okay, and that is a concept we can also revisit tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, I mean, by the end of tomorrow, y'all gonna come up with the entirety of the plan to
Right.
council, including what dollar figures. So yeah, y'all, you know, all you need to do is kind of sketch out what you're thinking.
What I'm trying to make clear is that we don't have to decide everything today. I want everyone to know that we do have a meeting tomorrow to finish this work, and I think it would be, and I'll certainly do this, pour over the data and look at the differences and try to better, you know, articulate or put together the strategy we'd like to use in supporting these issues. Because they are different, and that was my concern from the beginning. You know, is to look at each one individually, because they're slight, but they do have some key differences that we do need to, as a committee, decide how we want that to look in terms of anything we put together as a plan.
So can I make a suggestion then with Sean's input, since he gave that input? Yeah, could we just wait until tomorrow? Like, could we all just go back and look at those plans again and then maybe come back with some suggestions tomorrow, or do we have to do that today?
No, we can do it tomorrow, and I would suggest that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what we should do.
Now that it's on our radar today, and so tonight today we can all go back and take a look at these and get a better you know, feel or understanding for how we think it should be crafted as part of our plan. Because I think we all agree, and that's what today was about, is getting our minds wrapped around the general ideas of the plan and what we basically like to see there. So that's what we've kind of done today. But tomorrow, by the end of tomorrow's meeting, we have to have a workable plan to submit. We have to have, you know, clear concepts. That's why Sean's asking for clarity on the issue, because we have to have clear concepts ready to submit as far as what we wish to carry out in our plan for 2021. So we're gonna look at these, continue to review these and revisit these tomorrow, correct? Is that what everyone would like to do?
Yeah, and I would say in regards to this early childhood, I mean, I'm for supporting it, but I would just like to know the different, like how is it different? Is it another area of our state? Is it different regions of the state? I don't know if that's what it's.
Right, Sean, as a staff, can y'all reach out and verify with them, you know, the differences from this submission to the plan that we're currently under with them, contract we're currently under with them?
This is Courtney. I can reach out to Maria.
Thank you, Courtney, because it looks strikingly similar to what we're already contracted with them to do. So it may just be they're just simply asking for us to continue the work into the 2021 fiscal year. I don't know that there are key differences, but we certainly don't want to overlook it, you know, if there are. So please reach out to her and you know, see what guidance or feedback she can give us there.
I believe Miss Brenda Casse has her hand raised.
Yes, Brenda, you have the floor.
Thank you. Earlier, there was a question from stakeholders in regards to submitting new concepts. Did we address the procedure for that? And if we will be able to get, if the committee would be able to receive any information to consider on tomorrow.
Courtney, would you like to answer the question for Brenda?
Sure. I think that question was asked earlier, and Mr. Fleming said that it was going to be allowable for new concepts to be received. However, we're trying to meet today and tomorrow to determine which ones to adopt for our action plan.
Right.
So we would not have time to send out another solicitation of concepts. But we are offering public comment today and tomorrow.
Right.
Which the committee does want to hear and would consider, yes.
Right.
Sean, do you have anything to add?
Well, no, we receive concept proposals at any time through the year. If it's a formal submission of a concept proposal, right, we have deadlines so that we can make sure that they are available for each committee or council meeting for consideration. And so that there was a deadline when we had planned to have this meeting, I think it was in March, so that y'all would receive it then. But right, I'm sure y'all are open to receiving concept proposals that people want to present now, that if they have an idea. And at the council meeting, it's an open meeting, it's an open public meeting, and they're free to make comments. This just would not be a formal, you know, it would not be in y'all meeting agendas and materials and such, of course. So y'all would not be able to preview it before the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Sean. So is there any more work, since we're going to review the materials for the proposals for tomorrow? We'll have it ready for a larger discussion, a more detailed discussion as a committee tomorrow. Is there anything else we need to decide today? Because we really need to try to, you know, figure out, you know, when to adjourn so we can carry out the work we need to do tomorrow. Is there anything, Courtney or Sean, you need us to do today that we haven't done?
Well, you have the, I guess, yeah, the short of it is there's a couple of things. the council had submitted some requests for some concepts for consideration. And, you know, there was another suggestion for support decision-making training that your staff had thought would be a recommended activity, and it came from Liz as well. So, and you know, we had also thought whether y'all should consider anything if y'all think any natural disaster, global pandemic, emergency activities related to that. If y'all have anything to consider. I have listened to a couple of what other states have done. And I could share some of that with y'all, but it's, but I think y'all should consider those.
Okay. Well, as far as the supported decision-making, I mean, I'm for it, and there's a new law, and I think we need to do our best to get that out to the public, and some training as needed with both the public, and I would assume LaCan would need some training there maybe as well. So, you know, could you just enlighten us more on what your recommendation is there, Sean?
We would have to research who could provide it and get an idea from y'all about the extent of the training. I think it initially would all have to be web-based. So it would really just be paying someone's time, and we could set up some webinars to, you know, but it depends how much, you know, right? If this is a law, I would think there would be a lot of interest. And so maybe
Yes.
series of different opportunities for people, and maybe some orientation, just some introductory webinars so people get a sense of in general what it is. And then I would recommend some more in-depth training sessions that provide people just a deeper understanding and a deeper dive into the intricacies of it. So, and that can all be in one activity. It could be separate activities. I mean, a lot of times we do separate activities if it's the, you know, introductory orientation of a topic is very different than a real intensive training series or seminars. And so my recommendation would be y'all would do both. One is just to have it so that people are introduced and have some general knowledge about what it is for them to consider whether they want to do it, and then have some
More in depth.
Yeah. So that's what I would consider. I don't have a dollar figure.
Ms. Liz Gary's hand is raised.
Liz, you have a comment?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if Sean had to put me back on. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to know, with that being said, you were asking Sean, so what do we need to have? Is there anything we need to have tomorrow? Maybe some key points similar to what Sean said, with any kind of extra description or anything as to what we are thinking about considering and why we think this is important, kind of thing. So I don't want this, you know, I appreciate Sean and his information that he gave, but do we want some more detailed to any of that? Is the more the better, the less the better, the more generic? I just want to make sure that we pay attention to this one and look into it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As a concept.
Absolutely. I would say the more information, the better. Because we don't really have a lot on it. So if someone does, I think it can help us to craft a better action plan as to what we'd like to see in terms of how this is carried out. I think we agree it needs to be done as a committee. I think we just need more clarity on what's needed to carry it out and how to do it in a way that is most productive and useful.
Okay. Well, I'm actually on vacation, but this is important. So I will work with Kelly at the ARC and Ashley, since we were pretty involved in this bill, and see what we can get back to you for hopefully later this evening, so that you'll have stuff for the morning. And I'll touch base with them and see if they think that's possible and what we can get.
Okay. Thank
And
you. We'd appreciate it.
This is, can I just interject something real quick, Randall?
Yes,
I know you said the more the better, but I think in one page document, they could give us a,
Yeah,
that would be a good.
Given the tight time frame, I think I think that's probably what would happen. But yeah, obviously, if you can make it concise, I mean, that helps us a lot.
I mean, can I make
Absolutely.
a suggestion just to maybe hopefully reduce a little stress on the time frame and, give people a little more time to.
By all means, Sean.
So, the council is going to vote on this plan on July 16th. Whatever y'all put forth will be presented. And, if we get something tonight for tomorrow, I think that we will try and do that as well. So, I appreciate Liz and Ashley and Kelly, but, further details can come out by the
Between now and the meeting.
between
Yes.
now, yeah. So if, more details, and that happens every year where, the specifics and more information just provides more guidance in terms of the exact number. I mean, if it was me, I would put, I don't know, maybe $20,000, $30,000 to hopefully we get some good presenters and have a series of, if y'all are open to doing series of it, y'all have a lot of money. Y'all have almost $400,000.
Right.
Not touched on activities that were ongoing that have gotten shut down. Y'all have not touched on some of the other things, but y'all have a whole lot of funds to do a lot of things with. And so we can further define how much, different proposals would be before the July meeting as well. So I just want to make sure everybody doesn't ruin their vacation and stress out too much. And y'all think y'all have to have a definitive number and idea right now by the time this meeting ends tomorrow.
All right. Thank you for the clarity, Sean. I think that helps us all. And I
Bambi
do.
has raised her hand.
Pardon?
Bambi has raised her hand.
Bambi, you have a comment?
Yeah, so I know that Sean mentioned that he had gotten some ideas about some projects or things we could implement in a plan that around the global pandemic or national disaster and emergency prep. I just want to make sure that we talk about that. I'm interested in hearing what he's learned and what are his things that he can share.
So there were two concepts that I thought were, and mind you, most councils were in the same boat as us and had most of their activities shut down. One activity was on basically making sure people aren't isolated and connecting, making sure they stay connected. And that the catch is that's not necessarily, I couldn't identify a goal or objective in our plan related to just that in and of itself. So I struggled with that in terms of fitting it into ours. And another one was, and that does fit into, we have a objective on people, participation on in this meeting even. To participate in our meetings, it requires you to have a certain amount of technology. And there were councils that were actually buying people equipment or at least loaning it to them. I do have some concerns, I guess, about how we would do that. We have to make sure we're very careful if we did stuff like that. But as everything goes to more remote, and in this time when you don't want people to have face-to-face, a lot of people are struggling with being able to engage because it does require equipment and knowledge and all this. And so there were a couple of other councils that were going as far as buying equipment and then how to use it and making sure, DSPs were getting training on helping them to connect and all this other stuff. So those were some things that have happened across the country.
This is Bambi again. I think in regards to that, I mean, we have a nationally recognized organization, Trach Mamas of Louisiana, that does this type of work. And I think, and I'm certain that's not the only organization, but I know that they specialize and have been recognized nationally for their work, and I'm familiar with it. So I think that this is something that perhaps they might be interested in pursuing. And I think it's really, really important. We have a loosely organized coalition, which is MDAC, which many of you have been a part of, the Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition. But it is just, people volunteering their time to come together and our state agencies coming together. But I think that putting some money behind it and making sure that that developmental disability community is getting the attention it needs and the voice it needs and the help would be, I think it would be good to put money behind that.
I agree, Bambi. I think that would be wise, and I think that's a good suggestion to reach out to Trach Mamas and anyone else we might know or come to know that would be interested in participating in helping us to make sure these goals are met. Does anybody have anything to add?
So do we want to go over the recommendations from the standing committees, or do we want to just jump into the action plan and go through all of the contractual activities?
What are the recommendations from the standing committee, Courtney?
The Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee, recommendation for the FFY21 Planning Ad Hoc Committee to consider the following activities for inclusion in the 2021 Action Plan. Continue providing relationship, intimacy, and abuse exploitation trainings, and develop a mechanism for people to anonymously share ratings, comments, and their experiences with service providers and home modification contractors to assist individuals in determining the best provider for their needs and family. The Education and Employment Committee recommend the following items for the Planning Committee for the 2021 Action Plan. Track implementation of local SEEPs, customized employment training, post-secondary inclusive education, a collaborative effort of the DD network to address issues related to schools, understanding responsibilities related to serving students with disabilities, and training for school resource officers and teachers administrators on handling students with disabilities related to behavior. So again, these are recommendations from the standing committees for making sure that this committee considers keeping these or adding these to the 2021 Action Plan.
So this is Bambi. Can we, I know some of these items are already, they're continuing activities. So could we see what our current budget or is related to these items, and to just help me visually to be able to see what we're already doing and kind of what we want to continue to do? And did we lose our chairperson? I think we lost our chairperson.
We may have. Brenda stepped out for a minute too, but I mean, y'all are not voting right now. So as long as y'all have a quorum when y'all vote is what really matters. But right, I don't know if y'all want to recess, but you can't since your chairperson's not here.
So Brenda is back on.
Yeah, Brenda, I see her. This was last year's. Let me see if I can blow it up. I struggle with, if I blow it up, it might mess up. But so you have early steps, childcare inclusive training, 90,000. You have customized employment training, as a certification training, 50,000. You have post-secondary inclusive education alliance at 40,000. So when the council voted on this, y'all last year, y'all plan was to do it for at least 2 years. I mean, their activities have been stymied a little bit, but they've continued to do things. I would recommend y'all continue that. This is where the LSU HTC is recommending y'all kind of continue this. I'm not sure in both the inclusive early steps, childcare, and the customized employment, they both kind of require on-site technical assistance and, I mean, people being together. And so the full amounts of those have not, those budgets have not been spent because of COVID. But all three of those activities, I do highly recommend that y'all continue in this year's plan. How much money y'all commit to it might be, is another matter.
Hey, Sean, this is Chris. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier. The DD Council, you're not able to roll over funds, or yes?
No, your plan is year to year. And so you have two different things going on. And this was kind of misstated earlier when somebody was asking like last year's money, this year's money. When y'all vote on a plan, it's that year's plan. Okay. So, each one is independent of itself. To further complicate it is I run off a state budget cycle with a federal year plan, but that's not for y'all to worry about. That's my problem. But, so state-wise, there are mechanisms to roll money over to continue things and such. If I need more budget authority from the state to do things, I can do certain things to continue activities that were disrupted, for example. But in our federal plan, is the feds expect for your committing funds and having activities, that is on a federal cycle that starts October 1st, and ends September 30th of the next year. And so what y'all are voting on is not crossing years and all that. I have a commitment from what y'all did last year. Now to confuse things just a little bit, sometimes activities don't finish on time. And so we, both state and federal. And so we have had some times when we would, put an activity, a continuation activity in another year to cover that. But that's a whole nother, y'all can do that. Does that make sense? But each one of your annual plans is independent of one another. Does that help you?
A little bit. I'm just trying to ascertain, as I think, so many of these proposals and projects and ideas have merit. And I think everybody, wants to do them all, but we have to also understand that we have a finite amount of resources, just trying to figure out if we may have more resources in FY21 or the next year that we're talking about than we typically would as a result of not spending money that we thought we would have as a result of COVID in the current fiscal year.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, y'all have more money now and less concepts than money. I mean, we've not put in money for events. You've not put in money, again, like when y'all talk about the relationship training, I understand y'all conceptually want to kind of have one maybe big activity, maybe cover a couple of different things, but those concept proposals in my mind had a lot of differences to them. And y'all would need to give us direction on where y'all want to go with that. And a dollar figure. And same with like support decision making, put a dollar figures to these things. And then, go ahead, Bambi, I'm sorry.
Sean, I would like to add on here an item about the emergency preparedness, or for lack of a better word.
Well, I added this up here, access to online opportunities through technology. That's the emergency preparedness. I don't know if, there's other emergency preparedness y'all could do.
That to me does not tell me emergency.
I hear you. So what do you want to do though?
I mean, it needs to be somehow, I guess I'm kind of thinking broadly around the work, like people need, access, like case management. They need to know they need to know preparedness, and we need to know responsiveness in regards to equipment that they might need. I mean, there's responsiveness to housing in emergency situations. So I don't know how to word that concisely. But
what would the council do?
There's a case management part of it. There's access to meeting the needs, whatever it is, housing, food, things that people need as part of their disability. Equipment.
So what would that look like in terms of an activity?
So in other words, are you wanting a training statewide? Are you just wanting resources provided?
I mean, I think a training would be important because people need to know the training, and also being able to put together organizations, help to coordinate, the planning and response. So giving that information out to people in general that need people with disabilities, but also to the organizations that can participate in the response is my thoughts.
I have some other advocacy suggestions that's not contractually related to emergency preparedness. I mean, ACL did this listening tour on emergency preparedness, and my big takeaway from that was our emergency preparedness is designed for the masses. And so when you get people with significant disabilities and significant medical issues, it just doesn't work, for a whole slew of reasons. One of my recommendations is to advocate for, like, either through the waiver and or through GOSEP, I mean, maybe both, I don't know, is so that there's a much more individualized response to emergencies, that people aren't waiting for these exceptions and all this. It's kind of built into the process.
Ms. Kase has her hand raised.
Yeah, I'm not even the chair, so like one of y'all need to chair this. So, but Brenda, you can go ahead. So maybe I'm going to appoint you chair for right now. Just.
And Brenda.
Thank you. I was just concurring with Ms. Polozola and everything that she delineated.
I'm so sorry, Miss Brenda. I couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat that, please?
I think she said she just
Can you hear
concur.
me now?
Go ahead.
Yes, I was just concurring with Ms. Polozola and every point that she delineated. That would be demographics.
And so this is Bambi again. Like I think that perhaps it could be kind of the way that we do for, let's say, like education. Like we know that if someone has an education issue, they'll contact their Families Help and Family Centers. At the Families Help and Family Centers, in regards to education, they'll get training. The Families Help and Family Centers have connections to the people that they need to be connected to that can help with that student's education. And so, and that's how I'm kind of thinking, like some entity that can help provide training and bring together the entities that can help.
So Bambi, this is Chris. So what I'm kind of hearing is, and I just very quickly put down some words in terms of an activity. It's kind of, for me, I'm hearing like a two-tiered system. One would be, the activity could be coordinate rapid response regarding disability-related needs during disaster and emergency scenarios, both locally and statewide. And to me, that's kind of like the purpose that was done so well with the MDAC group when you heard of like a certain ICF that needed PPEs immediately, and somebody coordinated and made all the phone calls and coordinated the contacts to get that done. Or the instance in the woman needing a ventilator, the person who was kind of the head to coordinate all the resources and all the networks and people know to get that done. So that would be one. And then the other thing I'm hearing would be like somebody that would lead emergency preparedness trainings throughout the year, and perhaps build a emergency preparedness virtual library of sorts that would be somewhere, so all the resources could be in a single place. Is that kind of getting at what the activities might look like for the concept?
Yeah, I think that's correct, Chris, because I think MDAC has tried to do that without any, additional resources, just kind of hobble together what we had with each of the agencies, but something we could put money into it and then also you have MDAC that'll continue to support that work. But so I know, like one time there was a grant received that MDAC worked on, but I forgot who it went to. Maybe Latan, about like fire alarms in homes. And so they were some organization got the grant, but then they partnered with MDAC to help to make sure, people knew about it and there was training and there was a way to get those out into people's homes. So that's what I'm kind of thinking of. Some entity would get a grant or get the funding through the DD Council and then be able to coordinate all those things that you said.
I'm sorry to change topic, but I just want to make sure that this public comment is read. From Ms. Kelly Monroe of ARC of Louisiana. Customized employment is usually virtual. We chose to do it differently. So if you want to continue, it is doable. I would like to address that by I know that our gateway trainings are typically face-to-face with the trainer and with everybody congregating, but if that can be done virtually, then I would encourage continuing that aspect. But for the vendors who are going through the actual certification process and are actually trying to place people in employment, during this time, that's what's kind of held up those activities with, businesses shutting down and not a lot of people allowed in. So I think that's why the customized employment activity has stalled. But I believe Ms. Monroe would like for that to continue if we can do it all virtually. I believe that's what she's trying to say. And she just responded stating that she agreed and those activities are later in the contract year.
So Randall's phone or battery has died, and so he's not available. So one of y'all need to be the chairperson. Well, it's not in a committee. Actually, the meeting is technically, y'all have a quorum. I'll take that back. So y'all can have a conversation, but technically the meeting is adjourned due to lack of a quorum. If y'all would like, y'all could just discuss what y'all think in terms of amounts for these things, or plan to come back tomorrow for that. That's y'all purview. But the committee is no longer in meeting. Y'all cannot take a vote.
So, Sean, there is something else on the agenda item in regards to school resource officers and law enforcement training.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, maybe we want to have a discussion and we want to include something.
Yeah, so that, particularly in light, I guess, of the recent police brutality revolution we have going on. I mean, I have done quite a bit of research on police tactics. Okay, so school resource officers are peace officers, and there are requirements that in our state law for peace officers to receive training on people with developmental disabilities. My takeaway from, and this was before the social uprising, relative to police brutality, it's training for police is necessary but not sufficient to expect to change practices. So while I think the country is rightfully demanding change on how police tactics are affecting people of different races differentially, and Black people are being, receiving the brunt of some of it, and how people with developmental disabilities and disabilities also face excessive force. And on January 28th, I saw a mother bury her child who died in police custody. And it's due to lack of understanding, but it's also just due to, in my opinion, police escalating, and they come in and they have a certain role. So when I look at it from a school perspective, I guess one of the things that has concerned me is that if we think we're going to train school resource officers to play a bigger role in schools, and a school resource officer is not part of the school. It's not part, I mean, some people have recommended we have school resource officers be involved in an IEP. I think that is the complete opposite. I don't even know if that's legally allowable. You have a completely different entity with a different purpose. And when you look at discipline in schools, kids with disabilities have about 1.8 times higher likelihood of being suspended, higher chance of having corporal punishment, used on them. And the same thing goes with like arrest, is when a school refers a child, any child, to a school resource officer. I do wish the school resource officer would take the opportunity to evaluate whether a crime has been committed. But I've had police who work in schools tell me, it's like, well, if a school is asking me to come and intervene, they're going to take the kid. And so the juncture starts with the school. I just want to start with that, with the school's practices of referring a kid out. And before the police are even allowed to intervene, I guess, whether a behavioral issue should be handled internally within a school and the child's behavior intervention plan. I would caution the council to think it would resolve the myriad issues that go on with discipline and the involvement of police in schools with school resource officer training. It's a much bigger issue that should be looked at across the entire spectrum. That's my first. That's my suggestion to y'all, to consider all those things. Now, is more training good for everybody? I do think it is. I would not want people to think just because they were trained, we have an expectation that their practices are going to shift substantially. I also think this revolution going on in our country presents a great opportunity for the council to begin to engage police in using different tactics in general, and understanding the differences in, a starting point is understanding people might come to them with different communication needs, but I believe police forces are interacting so heavily with people with developmental disabilities. And I want y'all to understand, developmental disabilities in our definition covers people with both intellectual and mental health, behavioral health issues. They both fit under the council's definition. And about a third of the interactions police have are with those populations. And I think it takes years of training and to really approach someone, and even then struggle with, because of all the different ways someone can present. I really believe my suggestion would be to try and get police forces to have specialized units that they can tap into with people with the expertise. Because expecting a police officer to, at a minimum, we want them to identify kind of what they're dealing with, but know when to hand it off to someone who's better qualified to deal with it. And they do that with other situations. And that's where I've done a little bit of, but anyway, that's my suggestion with all that.
So Sean, based on what you said, do you think it's, so if just a blanket, training is not enough, as we look at other areas where we do training or technical assistance, do we need to focus on pilot areas where you build capacity within a parish or
and have them review their practices of, their escalation practices, their what's their goal state when they approach someone, right? And have some, and they need resources. I believe they need to be able to call somebody to help them navigate the situation. And that's right. but yes, a pilot, pilots to demonstrate, to get it rolling. Yes, that would be the best way to do it.
So we have 7 minutes left. Does anyone have a comment or a recommendation? Or are we just discussing right now?
Just discussing. I mean, you can discuss, y'all can, nothing's been voted on. Y'all can suggest whatever you want, or you can reserve it till tomorrow and come back. Y'all do have a lot of work tomorrow to go through your other activities. And, but I mean, I'm gonna leave these up here. I'll email this to everyone. Y'all have a bunch of blanks,
So Sean, can you add to that list just for us to be able to keep it on our radar? Like a pilot, police training or it's already there. Okay, in yellow. Okay.
Is that good? And I mean, I'm just, like I try and type kind of what I think y'all thought y'all meant to say, change it as y'all see fit. And it's going to look different when it's in the plan anyway. This is just a kind of a placeholder to give us where we are with a dollar figure. But as you can see, y'all have $200,000 remaining. And I'll put these numbers in here. I don't know if those numbers will all stay the same. I mean, that's the yellow means y'all have not really made a decision. I mean, none of this y'all really made a decision per se. So I'll just yellow all that out. But officially, y'all can't make any decisions. So there's that. Can y'all see it? Like, I don't know what y'all even see, truthfully.
I believe there are some public comments in the chat. Ms. Davy, I didn't know if you wanted to read them or if you want me to read them.
Okay, so I see Ashley said she does these trainings and police officers want to need resources within their unit. She's working with Representative Bacala on created a law to create this resource and also create an optional database that will allow parents, individuals to enter their info for when police are responding to a house call or making a stop. It will register that there's an individual with an IDD. So I know that's available. I know that that's available in my parish, and I know a lot of parishes that you enter that into the 911 system. But maybe this is, I don't know if Ashley could share more about that, but that is a good resource.
And I believe there was a comment on our YouTube feed from Miss Katie Corcoran. Do you see that one?
I see this item on the agenda. I'm not sure what that is, but did staff prepare for this item to present to council members? Interim ED comments are vague and don't seem to be produced action item. That's all the comments that I see.
I believe that's all.
So what would y'all like to do?
Guess we adjourn. Or not officially adjourn, we just leave.
Okay, well, I appreciate y'all time. I will send this out to y'all. Okay, and we will sketch out just some language for activities for these for y'all consideration in the draft plan. And y'all can clean them up, let them say what you really thought they should say, you know, if we missed the boat, too bad. So, okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for participating and sharing your comments and thoughts.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Stephen.
Until tomorrow.